Okay, everybody. We're gonna start. We have a pretty tight schedule. So my name's Rod Wing. I'm the director of the Center for Desert Agriculture, and welcome to KAUST. We're very excited to have you here today. Over the next 3 days, this is going to be a whole series of discussions about food security in the country and how can we all work together to improve food security in the country and really come up with a roadmap. And one target that I want to promote is, really where does KAUST fit in this food security picture of the country? And so we're here to be partners with you all, and we're really excited about the next 3 days. So with that, I'm going to hand over the podium to Paul Dalby. He'll be the MC for the meeting the entire 3 days, and we'll go on from there. So anyway, welcome to KAUST.
Thanks very much, Rod. My name is Paul Dalby. I'm the MC, as Rod said. You'll notice from my accent that I'm all the way over here from Australia. And thank you for the warm welcome that I've already received from a lot of people already here in Saudi Arabia. It's fantastic to see you all here at this workshop. You're obviously all very welcome. This is an important and consequential summit for Saudi Arabia, I believe, being hosted here on the really quite stunning KAUST campus and sponsored by the Makkah Regional Development Authority. So we thank them as well very much. Today, our job is to start this conference. There are 3 days. Each day has a different purpose. So the purpose of today is to define the challenges and issues facing sustainable food security in Saudi Arabia. Tomorrow, we look at what are some of the solutions. And on Wednesday, we do the really hard work, which is how do we implement these solutions? Implementation is always the most difficult bit, right? So 3 days of work to do. The structure of the event will include some keynote speakers, discussion forums, and also some hands-on workshops. And I will explain what all of those sessions are at the beginning of each of those sessions. It is a 3-day event. We hope you will all stay for the 3 days, but we know that a lot of people here are very busy and that you might move in and out of the summit as the days progress. So at the end of each session and at the beginning of each day, we will have a summary of what has been happening so that you can catch up very quickly and understand where we're at in the program. The organisers have brought together the leading experts in their field who can lead us through these presentations and discussions and propose solutions and delivery options for sustainable food security. The summit is both live and online. So there are perhaps 300 people watching this event live, also online. The number of registrations has exceeded the expectations of the organisers, which is a fantastic thing, but also it may result in the occasional glips in the technology, and if that happens, we apologise, but it's really only because the demand to participate in this conference has been so high. We thank you all for your participation and contribution to this important and very consequential summit. And we look forward to your contribution to the debate and the discussions that happen over the next 3 days. To officially welcome you to the summit, it's my great pleasure to invite to the stage Professor Mark Tester, who is the Associate Director of the Centre for Desert Agriculture in KAUST and also the Chief Scientist and Co-founder of Red Sea Farms. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you very much, Rod and Paul. And welcome to our inaugural KAUST workshop for sustainable food security. This isn't going to be a normal academic talking shop, valuable though those are. What we want to do in these 3 days is focus on the solutions to a problem. We're going to focus on how we can address the huge challenges posed by the urgent imperative to increase the sustainability of the secure provision of food for the kingdom. And from this, also the region and the world. All of this is centrally relevant to the Kingdom's Vision 2030, as well as the Kingdom's COP26 commitments and the Saudi Green Initiative's goals of delivering net zero carbon emissions by 2060. We've had amazing interest in this workshop. Nearly 600 people have registered to attend. It's still going up. 333 or 56% are here in person. This provides us with unparalleled opportunities to formulate some recommendations that have some weight for consideration by the Kingdom. So food security means that all citizens have food that is available and accessible, safe and nutritious, and sustainable. And sustainability means, semantically, that the activity can be maintained at a certain rate or level. In 1987, the Brundtland Report, called Our Common Future, defines sustainable development as activity that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So a nuance on that semantic definition. And the modern incarnation of this is captured by the UN's Sustainability Development Goals, which have gained traction globally. There are usually considered to be three main pillars for sustainability: environmental, economic, and social. We have to keep all three of those pillars in mind in these discussions. And the focus on sustainability isn't just because it happens to be fashionable at the moment. It is because the food sector is perhaps the least sustainable sector of human activity on the planet. To get the food onto our plates, we use half of all land that humans are able to use. And that area is no longer increasing. It has not increased for over a decade. To put the food on our plates, it uses 70% of all fresh water that humans use. And every aquifer being used for irrigation of our crops is being depleted, every major aquifer. And the food sector is responsible for an estimated 36% of CO2 equivalent emissions, the second biggest sector of human activity. And we need a large increase in global food production. The estimates are still uncertain, but I think we can safely work on the basis that globally we need about 50% more food produced by 2050. Another way to look at this is that our current annual increase in the rate of production must increase by 30%. We have to increase our rate of increase by 30% to meet predicted food needs. Furthermore, we have unsustainable supply chains, and these are often forgotten. But we must remember that 30% of the food produced around the world, I should say an estimated 30% of the food produced around the world, is either lost or wasted. This is equating to over 1 billion tons of food annually. And on top of all of this, we have huge issues around human health. We live in a world where 65% of the world population live in countries where obesity is a bigger killer than undernourishment. And the estimated annual costs are high. Obesity, estimated $760 billion. Diabetes, $670 billion. These are highly impactful on world economies. Furthermore, 7 million children under the age of 5 die of malnutrition-related causes every year, almost entirely in developing countries. And 2 billion women and children suffer from sublethal micronutrient deficiencies, with a massive cost, estimated to be over $3 trillion to the world economy. In Kingdom, I'm afraid I have to say it's quite difficult to find reliable numbers. I find sometimes difficult to find statistics that are consistent. But so in this meeting, I think we need to be careful about making statements based on clear numbers. It is difficult to know some of the facts and figures, but some things are definitely very clear. For example, or in particular, precipitation across Kingdom is extremely low and evaporation is very high. There are extremely small areas of natural permanent surface water. Recharge of aquifers must, per force, be extremely low. And satellite gravimetric monitoring unequivocally shows the groundwater reserves are depleting. As such, because of these conditions, almost all crops must be grown with irrigation, and the use of the groundwater for that irrigation is essentially a one-off. we can use the groundwater. I would argue that we have to use the groundwater, but we must be very conscious of the fact that we can only use it once. One drop out, that's it. We have to maximize the efficiency and value from those drops of water that we are removing from underground. We actually find it very difficult even to know what the total freshwater reserves are in Kingdom. The estimates range from 500 to 5,000 cubic kilometres. Annual use, we have a pretty good hold on. It's about 30 cubic kilometres. So this means that at the current rates of use, our reserves will be gone sometime between 17 and 170 years. It is estimated that 85% of the water that is used is for agriculture. And also note, desalination only provides about 2 cubic kilometres of water a year. That's 7% of the total water. So by far and away, most of the water used in Kingdom is for agriculture, and by far and away, most of that water is taken from underground reserves that are perforce depleting. Therefore, we need to maximise the value we obtain from each drop used. And just as the Kingdom is planning for when oil consumption declines, so we must also plan for when the water runs out. We must also ensure that we do not confuse food security with local production. Local production is not required for food security. I don't know how many of you know which country in the world, according to the Economist Global Food Security Indices, is the most food secure country in the world. It's Singapore. And that's not food secure because of its hundreds of hectares of wheat growing, ripening gently in the breezes. It's because of their importation system, their management of their food sourcing, and encouraging a diversity of sources for food. For example, don't just buy your wheat from Ukraine. And they have secure, well-structured, well-organized storage and distribution systems. And as supply chains become more disrupted due to conflict, increasing extreme weather events, COVID, and fuel price changes, it has never been more important to have a clear diversification strategy for our food security. On the production side, sustainable food security means that we produce as much locally as makes sense. As makes sense environmentally, economically, and socially, those 3 pillars of sustainability. This minimizes local production, minimizes transport and storage, which is particularly valuable for perishable foods, higher value foods, fish, fruits, vegetables. And for these, we can leverage our local advantages. Here in Saudi, we have an abundance of sunlight, warmth, land, low disease loads, seawater. Let's use these advantages to produce as much as we can locally as makes sense. And fruits and vegetables give high value returns for the volume of fresh water used. By my calculations, $1 worth of fresh water can produce $200 worth of tomatoes in a controlled environment agriculture system. If we produced all fresh fruit and vegetables that is technically reasonable in Kingdom, in greenhouses, for a population of 50 million, which it will be here not that long from now, we would need to produce about 5 million tonnes of fresh fruit and vegetables. This would require about 10,000 hectares of greenhouses. For high-tech greenhouses, that would have a capex of about $30 billion. And if they were saltwater greenhouses using salt water as much as is technically possible for their cooling, which uses 90% of the water in a greenhouse in this environment, that would use, those 10,000 hectares of greenhouse would use about 0.1 cubic kilometres of fresh water each year. That would take 500 to 5,000 years to deplete the likely groundwater reserves to produce most of our fresh fruits and vegetables locally. Not to mention generate 160,000 jobs, deliver $20 billion of import substitution annually, which is equivalent to a contribution to GDP, and have vast reductions in CO2 emissions due to the astonishing emissions that come from the air transport of fresh produce into the kingdom. And then we import what we cannot sustainably produce locally, using sources that are as sustainable as possible. For this, we need to develop systems to support traceability of our food and the quantification of the sustainability of sourcing, develop sustainability indices. And this approach makes absolute sense for high volume, long shelf life, low value commodity produce, such as the cereals. Growing wheat in this region gives very low value for the volume of fresh water used. In fact, by my calculations, it's a negative value. $1 worth of fresh water used to produce our wheat gives just 25 cents worth of grain. We're losing huge amounts of money growing wheat locally. If we produced all the cereals we needed in Kingdom under centre pivots for a population of 50 million, we would need to produce about 8 million tonnes, which would need about 1 million hectares of land and 6 cubic kilometres of water annually. That would lead just for that to only 80 to 800 years to deplete the likely groundwater reserves. Massively less sustainable than local production of fresh fruit and vegetables. However, just as the needs of increased sustainability of the food sector are imperative, so too are the opportunities. And that's what we want to focus on today, over these next 3 days. Policies. Governments are increasingly alert to the issues, and policies are developing to support improvements in sustainability. Bioplastics, biodegradable plastics are one obvious area to reduce pollution and facilitate recycling. We talk about circular economy, let's do it. And in the food sector, it's easy. Let's wrap our food in biodegradable plastics so they can be easily incorporated into the recycling system. However, subsidization of utilities is highly distorting. Given Saudi Arabia is one of the most water-stressed countries in the world, we really must start paying for the real price of water. Subsidizing water is not only reducing incentives to save water, it also inhibits entry into the market of innovations that could save water. Government policies can address this. People, young people, especially young people, are increasingly aware of the environmental pressures that the planet is under, and they increasingly want to do something about it. Consumer behavior is changing, and changing incredibly rapidly in Saudi Arabia. This is a huge positive, but we need to help this with education and outreach. Let's help people make informed decisions when they're buying their food. I've got some dates here. How many of you know that the production of a single date requires 50 litres of water? This box of dates requires a tonne of water for its production. Let's inform people about this, make them appreciate the value and the environmental footprints of the food that they're eating. 1 kilogram of tomatoes takes about 350 kilograms of water to produce in Kingdom. A number, incidentally, which can be easily reduced to in the order of 20 litres by over a factor of 10, using some of our KAUST technologies, such as is being delivered through Red Sea funds. Let's introduce labelling, though, to our food produce to provide an indication of the environmental footprint of the food that is being produced, to help inform people and help them make informed decisions, because a lot of people out there want to make decisions. And finally, opportunities, fabulous opportunities also come from technology. Innovations can play a vital role. Both digital and biotechnological innovations are all around us. Blockchain, machine learning, computer vision, sensors, robotics, genomics, genomic selection, automated phenotyping, genome editing, genetic modification, stem cells. These are all technologies which are providing us with huge opportunities. So, the needs to improve the sustainability of our food systems are enormous, but so too are the opportunities. So in this meeting, let's define the challenges, define the solutions, and then let's deliver the solutions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mark. To officially open this event today, I would like to invite to the stage the President of KAUST, Professor Tony Chan.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everybody. It's my job to welcome all of you to this inaugural food security workshop and also to KAUST. Mark, that was the most compelling opening speech to any research workshop that I have ever heard. So I think Mark laid out the challenges to all of us. I think that's really quite clear. And I'm very delighted to hear about the figures that you mentioned about how many people participating is still going up. And that shows how important this topic is, especially for the kingdom, but really for the whole world. I want to mention that, I'm speaking here as the president of KAUST. That's my official duty. But it doesn't matter what the title is. You all wear some titles, right, of your own. We are all here because we share a vision for what food security means to humanity. That's what we're here. We want to have a world where we have abundant food that is nutritious, secure, grown sustainably, and made available to all, not only to the people who can afford them. I think that's the biggest challenge of humanity today. I mean, it's one of these sustainable development goals. I forgot which one. Where is that one over there? And I think we all have a role to play to do that. Now, I think it's goal number 2, if I remember, food security. This is a blueprint, right, to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all by 2030. Now, this model was an impetus behind the creation of KAUST research pillars. And we had 4 research pillars when we were founded about a dozen years ago. And food is one of the 4. The other ones are energy, environment, and water. And in the last few years, we added digital. You see, all 5 are actually intertwined. They work with each other as Mark have laid out the problem. Okay, you grow food, you need water, you need energy, you want to be sustainable, you have a good environment. And in digital will become increasingly more important. I'm sure it will come up in the workshop. I've been talking with Rod about genomics for plants. I mean, that's just one example. So all these things are entwined together. And at KAUST, we're determined to bring all these elements together to make our contribution. In particular, Rod is the director of our Center for Desert Agriculture, and Mark is the deputy director. And you see that the logo of KAUST, there's these 4 pieces together. I mean, it should be multicolor. I want to find one. This one is not colored, but there should be one that is multicolor. Okay, there's a pin you can get. But anyway, that meant the 4 original pillars. It's in the in the back of the here. Okay, so thank you. So yellow represents food. Turquoise is for water. Orange for energy, and green the environment. Right. So there's a rationale to all of this. Indeed, the Center for Desert Agriculture was one of the original research centers at KAUST. Now, it's easy to lay out the problem, Mark, but it's very difficult to actually do something about them. But we have to keep trying. One of the reasons it's challenging is because the traditional challenges facing food, such as drought, blight, poverty, access, waste, and war, continue to present challenges today, back into history, actually. And these factors threaten to undermine the fulfillment of the goal, of the Sustainable Development Goal. The state of food security and nutrition in the World 2021 report estimated that between 720 to 811 million people, that's more than 10% of the world population, went hungry in 2020. According to the 2021 Global Hunger Index, 47 countries will fail even to reach low hunger status by 2030. And that's an increase of 10 countries compared to 2020, only a year ago. So the situation is getting worse, not getting better. Now, there's a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, from India. So the quote goes like this: "There are people in the world so hungry that God cannot appear to them except in the form of bread." So when you're hungry, you cannot think about other things, including even religion. I think that's what he's saying. Now, of course, the pandemic doesn't help. The long-term effect of COVID-19 are expected to increase the number of undernourished people globally into the millions, where there's food insecurity and hunger. Physical, spiritual, cultural, and economic development will also suffer. That's quite obvious. Now, coming back to the region, historically, the Middle East region has been vulnerable to famine, desertification, and the arid or semi-arid condition of Saudi Arabia, interlinked with the water scarcity, reliance on food imports, which is okay according to Mark, soil erosion, and related life on land issues, compound all these challenges to food security. The kingdom recognizes that a multidimensional problem requires preparedness, multidisciplinary strategy. Priorities established within the Vision 2030 program include improving its agricultural sector and developing rural areas while increasing efficiency in its use of limited natural resources. To this end, the kingdom is actively engaged in a wide variety of experts in technology to explore solutions, and one of the reasons we're gathered here today. Now, I'm not in this field, okay? Although I'm, of course, a consumer, I'm probably guilty of food waste myself, okay? But there's a famous environmental activist and American farmer by the name of Wendell Berry. So here's a quote that was given to me, okay? Let me read this. "Agriculture must mediate between nature and the human community, with ties and obligations in both directions. To farm well requires an elaborate courtesy towards all creatures, animate or inanimate. It is sympathy that most appropriately enlarges the context of human work. Contexts become wrong by being too small, that is, to contain the scientist or the farmer or the family farm or the local ecosystem or the local community. And this is crucial. In other words, I guess my message from this is you got to look at the more bigger picture, okay, rather than just focus on what you're doing for the moment. Now, for this conference, we are fortunate to have with us some of the brightest minds gathered from multiple fields of expertise to brainstorm future solutions. The ideas are big, and they are also promising. KAUST is proud to help bring these solutions to light by hosting this event, and proud of the participants, including our own researchers, for their contributions. My request to you while you're here is that you participate fully. Be curious, learn as much as you can about the issues. I'm sure even in this sector, there are silos within it, okay? Learn as much as you can about the issues. Engage with your fellow presenters and attendees. I guarantee you will emerge inspired. The workshop agenda is compelling and is diverse, but the central focus is on finding strategic, technical, and policy solutions that are suitable for this region to improve sustainable food production. Over the course of the workshop, you'll learn about a variety of approaches being used and in development. Like, for example, how drones and other remote sensing tools are being used to monitor crops and water irrigation to improve production and minimize waste. Another example, the role microbes play in the health of the soil, boosting water retention and immunity. Advances in agricultural gene research and the selection of hardy traits in plants for improved resilience. Value of organic biodiverse ecosystem for attracting pollinators like bees and other beneficial organisms. And the cultivation of salt-tolerant plants to feed people while saving precious freshwater resources, like Mark have outlined. So many other viable topics are on the table for discussion. I know I plan to attend as many presentations as I can. If you are energized by what you hear, and I know for sure that you will, then my other request to you is to pass it on. Even though we have, 900 people, either physical or online, it's still a very small fraction of the people who are affected by it and who can contribute. Use your network, your influence, and resources to mobilize these ideas into action. Let's not let the impact of this movement be confined to these walls and this event. Let's continue to explore solutions together. Let me close with another catalyzing quote from Wendell Berry. The soil is the greatest connector of lives, the source and destination of all. It is the healer and destroyer and resurrector by which disease passes into health, age into youth, and death into life. Without proper care for it, we can have no community, because without proper care for it, we can have no life. A sustainable agriculture is one which depletes neither the people nor the land. I think that's a good place for me to stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Chen. These events take a lot of work and a lot of resources to put on, and they can't happen without a sponsor. And the sponsor for this event has been the Makkah Regional Development Authority, and I would like to invite to the stage the CEO, His Excellency Engineer Ahmed Al-Aredhi.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making this event happen. Allow me first to start with special memory as approaching KAUST. Was delighted to be a member of the team who built this prestigious academic complex a few years back. So literally, I can claim to be part of KAUST family. And standing in front of you today after a very informative session by Mark and Dr. Tony would make it difficult. But let me first start with welcoming you all in this forum and expressing my deepest gratitude to KAUST for sponsorship, cooperation, expertise, and exceptional participation. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all in this summit, where we activate the Makkah Green Initiative, a key initiative that was launched by His Royal Highness, the Prince Khalid Al Faisal, the governor of Mecca province, advisor of the two Holy Mosques, and chairman of the board of Mecca Development Authority. We're here to set in motion and accelerate one major outcome of Saudi Green Initiative, the initiative that stands as one of the prime objectives of the Kingdom 2030 vision. The aim of Mecca Green Initiative can be simply put as a key 4 pillars that are easy to be illustrated, but yet requires a great efforts by all of us. Namely, those are increasing vegetation cover percentages, protecting natural habitat, increasing environmental commitment, and maximizing benefits from water resources. We can all understand and value such aims, especially nowadays where food self-sufficiency is a global concern that faces the threats of war, logistics obstacles, and shortage in international supplies. In addition to the significance of those aims in the world seeking greater health environment, thus one of the Saudi initiative springs an intersection of different fields in science and humanities. In order to achieve the Makkah Green Initiative, special maps to be led, of course, with the help of scientific experiments in which we are truly collaborating with KAUST, and of course, maximizing the use and utilization of artificial intelligence, where robotics and airplanes make it very important to achieve a mission. Of course, indeed, all of this has to become clearly with the awareness sessions to the society and the people, which Mark have addressed earlier, as well as Mr. Tony. And we should all keep remembering how much water we need to produce this box of date, which will keep it clear to all of us. I avail on this opportunity to present our great thanks to all of those who are willing to contribute to this achievement through the studies, commitment, and through the work, and invite them to know about Makkah Green Initiative by visiting our exhibition booth outside. Before I conclude, I would like again to thank all the participants, the staff, the organizer for very well organized events, and wish all of you a very pleasant 3 days ahead of us, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. With the opening of the formalities all finished, it's now time to work. We have 4 sessions today. Each will address a different challenge for sustainable food security, and you've seen this in the program. They are food supply, water supply, food use, and environmental change in the Saudi Green Initiative. So that is going to be the structure of the whole event, and it is the structure for today. Each session will have a chair with some speakers. They will all come up at the beginning of each session. Speakers will sit on the chairs, and the chair will introduce them. They are all eminent authorities in their field, specialists in their field. Each session will be followed by a break, so they will be self-contained. We expect to finish by 5:30, as long as we all keep to time. So just some simple housekeeping. If you have phones with you, please turn them off or turn them to silent, please. The prayer areas are across the bridge. There are some signs outside that will direct you to the prayer areas. Bathrooms are to the left. Timekeeping,